Hey, what's up guys? JayzTwoCents here, and I have in front of me the successor to the extremely popular and extremely successful Define R4 from Fractal Design. And this is the Fractal Define R5. And this is now one amazingly silent, amazingly water cooling friendly beast of a case. Other companies are gonna have a hard time beating this one, so don't go anywhere. EVGA's ACX 2.0 cooler with its 3-phase 6-slot motor, 11 swept fan blades, and double ball bearing design offers reduced power, noise, and thermals for the optimum gaming experience. Click the link in the description to learn more. Okay, so the Define R5, what's different? Well, you know, when it comes to the aesthetics and the outside of the case, it really has that pretty quintessential Define look to it, but there are a lot of changes both on the outside and the inside that you don't want to be fooled by. You don't want to look at this and think, oh, it's just a slight change of the Define series. No, this has been pretty much completely redefined. Now we'll go ahead and start with the front panel. The front panel is where you spend a lot of your time looking, and most people complained that they didn't want a door that opened this way. Now, I kind of agree with that because most people, if they have a window on their panel on this side, most people put their computer on their right side. If you're right-handed, that's where you tend to put it. And that's where the door opens up incorrectly, the opposite direction. But there are actually hinges here on the side that you can simply unscrew, screw the door on the other side, and it will then open up to the right, which is absolutely fantastic. Now taking a look at the inside here, you can see that they've also increased the airflow to the front air filter. But now we have a very open louvered filter with a mesh dust filter that does a fantastic job at keeping the 140 millimeter fans, which are also compatible with 120 millimeter fans in the front, nice and dust free. Now they've also changed the fans a little bit. They're a little bit more silent, a little bit more noise optimized, and you do have room to add another 140 millimeter or 120 millimeter fan in the front. Now when it comes to 5 1/4, they are toolless removable for the little covers on there, which is pretty much normal for Fractal. And then you have on the top your headphone jack, microphone jack, reset button, power switch, 2 USB 2.0 and 2 USB 3.0. And then again on the front, the simulated brushed finish on the front. This is plastic and it's simulated brushed, but it looks very fantastic. Now one way they've also increased the airflow to the front is, as you can see, we have nice thick louvers, nice open airflow, so air can come in and all the way around the sides of the front of this case, getting nice optimized airflow. I mean, the Define R4 was great at giving you silence, but it didn't have the greatest airflow. Now they have taken a lot of time with this case, all the way going down to super silent, you know, sub-silent rooms, I guess if that's even possible, and measuring all the different silence and different designs of this case to get it truly noise optimized. And that's what the Define series was about. It was all about silence and noise optimization. I mean, in fact, their whole campaign was silence redefined. You get it? Redefined? Yeah, anyway, corny, I know. So one other thing on the front I forgot to mention is it does have a full-length dust filter that removes from the front all the way back to the power supply. So none of that really silly half of a filter comes out the front and the other half comes out the back. Nope, you can clean the entire bottom of the PC filter right from the front. It's very easy to get in and out of there. As you can see, it just snaps into place. There you go. Now when it comes to the side here, instead of having the cover on there, which they used to have that, you know, you could cover up the side fan that had that piece of noise reduction foam on there and you could see the hex cut out. They've gone away with all of that and they've done, you know, nice paneling both on the side and on the top when it comes to removing the fan slot, if you will. They found a way to really integrate it into the case without making the aesthetics look like crap either. One other thing I do like about the side panel is they now have basically a thumb latch locking mechanism on the back. So once you take out the thumb screws, you really don't even need these in there because now you've got this latch on the back and now you can just take off the side panel and there you go. It's absolutely easy to access. So if you didn't even want to put those thumb screws back on, you don't have to because it actually holds very, very tight. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't rattle, doesn't move. It's So you could actually, if you go in and out of your case a lot, you don't even have to remove that or take off those thumb screws or put them back on. You just leave them off and use the latching system. As you can see here on the inside of the side panel, we do have the sound deadening material, and this is what really gives a lot of aid to the silence of this case. It's really known, Fractal's really known for using this material in all the Define cases. Now taking a look at the inside here, you can see I have a nice large motherboard cutout giving you really easy access to air coolers and water cooling backplates and whatnot, so you don't have to worry about there being any issue with compatibility and ease of installation. The motherboard tray is compatible with ATX, Micro ATX, Mini ITX, but eATX unfortunately is not supported on this case like it was on the Arc XL. The reason for that is you can see here on the front where you have the grommets here for your wire pass through, instead of being flat, it is slightly angled. Now that's gonna make for a lot easier, a lot cleaner cable management, but unfortunately you lose that eATX compatibility. But that's okay, because eATX is not a really big player in the ATX standard when it comes to motherboards. I mean, they're out there, like my Z97 classified as an eATX, but most people are running standard ATX or smaller motherboards, so I don't see that being a huge issue. We've got a massive rubber cutout here on the bottom for your power supply cables to work their way through. Cable management on this case is super easy. And before we talk about the hard drive cages and some of the radiator support, let's go ahead and take a look at the back of the case to see exactly how much room we have back there. Now what I do like is you can see I undid these thumb screws, but they don't come out, so you're not going to lose them. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate undoing a thumb screw and not catching it before I get to the last thread and knock the whole freaking side panel on myself. We're going to leave that in there because that's just classic. But anyway, the screws won't come off. The side panel will attack you. That's normal. That's actually a feature. Fractal Design put that even right in their own manual. But anyway, same sound deadening material on the back panel behind the motherboard tray. Taking a look at the back, you can see we have two, again, toolless. It's kind of a toolless theme going on here. You guys notice I have not busted out a single screwdriver yet. We have a toolless SSD mount removal system here. Mount your SSD, put the little tabs in there, tighten it down, boom, SSD is mounted just that quickly. Velcro straps here on the back, again, for cable management. You know, I wasn't planning on building anything in this case, but I'm really starting to feel like I need to now. Holy crap, this case has just got it all figured out. The fan controller is a SATA cable. Thank goodness for that. I really hate when case manufacturers give you a Molex, a 4-pin Molex cable to power things. I mean, most things are going SATA now, and that is a standard I like to see. But you can see you have well over an inch of space back here. I would say, well, let's see, past a Jay's first knuckle. So we're gonna say about 1.25 inches of space on the back here. Nice rounded edge, so you're not gonna cut any of your wires by routing them around right here. And then now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the bread and butter on this case. Transition. Okay, so disclaimer, I started to do a big portion of this review and I stopped and I went, okay, you know what? This deserves a teardown. Because I was talking about all the water cooling options and there was just so freaking many, there was no way I could actually show you without tearing it all apart. So if all of a sudden the computer just kind of like disassembled itself really fast on camera, that's why. Now, the Define R5, guys, it's pretty much just a metal shell. And the reason for that is they're giving you more radiator support and more options than most cases on the market. I'm not gonna say all, there are other cases that are geared specifically towards water cooling, but none of them are geared specifically towards water cooling as well as silent PC if you want it. You can choose to have a completely airtight, watertight, well, yeah, we're not gonna fill it up with water. We're not doing like a mineral PC in this, but you could have a silent air-cooled PC and even a silent water-cooled PC and not have to compromise on your radiator support. Now let's go ahead and talk about that. I've taken the hard drive cages out here to prove a space point on this. There's nothing really new when it comes to the hard drive cages other than they are thumb screws, like I already mentioned, that come out without losing them. And you can rearrange these to get maximum space. Like you could take the front one and move it back. Still have room for a standard link power supply and room for a front radiator up to 60 millimeters plus fans on there, and still have plenty of room for airflow. No problem whatsoever. So we're gonna go ahead and set these aside. There's not a whole lot to talk about with the drive cages, typical sleds, you know, same thing they've always used. The 5 1/4 bay up top comes out without tools. well, I guess technically you need, no, actually, take that back. These were completely thumb screwless. The bottom cage required a Phillips because those are real screws on the bottom. But everything to this point that I've taken out, with the exception of the bottom cage, is completely toolless. Now, if we go ahead and move all of this junk out of the way, and we take a look at the raw cage that is the Define R5, you can see radiator support on this thing is freaking massive. All right, let's start with the top. If you're running 120 millimeter fans on the top, you can do a 120, a 240, and a 360. Check it out. Like we've already showed, they have opened up the entire top of the case for 360 rad support. Now what they've done is just like they've done on their ARC series, they've taken the 120s and they've pushed them, instead of being centered on the case like everybody does, they've moved them towards the side of the case away from the motherboard, so you could run extra thick like monster rads, 60 millimeter rads without any problems mounting it. It'll mount and not interfere with your motherboard. So you can get extra thick radiators in there. Now, if you're gonna do the 140 millimeter, you can do a 140, a 280, or a 420, but unfortunately you're stuck with 55 millimeters of clearance, including the fan. So that means you can run a fan, which is a 25 millimeter fan, and a 30 millimeter rad, and go all the way up to 420. Now, when it comes to the bottom of the case, you can fit a 120 or a 240, as well as the big radiator up top. And then if you want it on the bottom here, or on the front, you could fit, let me open up that door, you could fit on the here, a 120, a 240, or a 360 millimeter radiator. That's just insane that you could fit on this thing a 360 on the front, a 360 on the top, and a 240 on the bottom. Now, you couldn't fit them all at the same time. There is going to be some interference on there. Like for instance, you couldn't run a 240 or a 360 on the front here and still have a 240 on the bottom. They're going to interfere right there. But you know, the fact that you could do a 120 here and a 240 here and a 420 there, you're gonna get much more radiator space than you need. And that's perfect because cards like the R9 290 and 290X run extremely hot. The 780s and the 780 Ti's and Titans, although they're not as hot as 290s and 290X, they are still pretty warm. But you could take care of all of that in this case. And because of the increased airflow on the sides, you get an awful lot of airflow through the front, so the front radiator and fans are not choking the rest of the case. You're actually getting the air that it needs. Now, cable management on this thing is fantastic. The angled motherboard tray, all of the radiator support, the toolless, the extremely toolless options, and the only reason they didn't put toolless screws on the bottom, I'm pretty convinced of, is because if you had the screw sticking out with the thumb head on there, it's gonna interfere with the filter. Other than that, this is by far a home run as far as I'm concerned when it comes to Fractal Design. Now, they don't give you a whole lot of fans. There's no top fan. There's only one front fan. So you've got one intake in the front, one exhaust in the rear. But you could fill this up again with just as many fans as I mentioned when it comes to radiators. So if you wanted to run a ton of slow RPM fans on this, you could do 140 in the front, 140 or two 140s on the front. You could do a 140 or two 120s on the bottom, or I'm sorry, two 120s on the bottom. You could do three 140s on the top and a 140 on the rear and run those puppies at like 600 RPM. You get tons of airflow, little to no noise. So guys, the Fractal Design R5, as far as I'm concerned, is an absolute winner. If I had an award, I would give it right now. I've always been a fan of the Fractal Design cases. In fact, I've been running an ARC XL on my test bench for a long time, about a year now, and I've just never had any issues or complaints to Fractal Design. In fact, this case is available in black, white, and titanium, and they do have a Windows side panel available for it as well. So guys, tell me what you think about this case. What would you put in this thing? You know, I'll be honest, I didn't fill it up with radiators right now because I don't have enough to fill it. I don't have that many radiators in my inventory. First world problems. All right, guys, tell me what you would build in this thing. And as always, follow on Twitter if you guys have any questions. Tell me about your PCs on Twitter or Facebook. I'd love to hear about your guys' PCs, keeping the PC community alive and well. And as always, guys, see you in the next one.